This is Lanny Poffo, formerly the genius full of glory and renown. You are listening to Damage 365 Radio.
It's the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast with the Enforcer.
I believe they're called enforcers, Gordon. I sell women's shoes.
And the Stallion.
Stallion, baby! I'm not what you would call a handsome man. I'll kick you in the nuts and you'll smile at me and like it all night.
Welcome to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your host. He is the Stallion. I am the Enforcer, and we are joined by an incredibly special guest. I would like to welcome everybody, Ring of Honor star, the Mr. One Punch, the knockout artist, Shane Taylor. Welcome to the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast, my friend.
Thank you guys for having me, man. Appreciate it. It's an honor.
I appreciate it. Listen, I heard, is there a dog in the background? What kind of dog you got?
I got 2 pit bulls.
That's awesome, man. I grew up with pit bulls. They are my favorite, man. That's awesome. Every time we do an interview with somebody, I got my German Shepherd and my lab barking in the background, so don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. And my baby just got home, and my wife just got home, so they're all excitable right now. So.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure they're bringing everything to the door, and it's all playtime right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows you from Ring of Honor, but I want to start, growing up, I know, you have a great story that I think people really, an inspiring story in growing up and how you got into the wrestling business. So before we get to Ring of Honor and the awesome last 2 weekends that you've had and your new, should I say, commentating career, let's start from the beginning and just tell us, a little bit about where you came from and what that was like and what led you to the wrestling business.
I'm an Army brat. My dad was a first-class drill sergeant in the Army for like 20 years. My mom was a teacher. So I've literally lived in, 30 states and a few different countries. But we settled in Cleveland, Ohio. And that's where I was born. And when we lived on the east side of Cleveland, Ohio, it was a rough time before the city tried to fix it, and they failed at doing that. But a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, a lot of violence. It astonishes people when I say that I'd probably gone to over 100 funerals by the time I was like 15. You know what I mean? So
Jeez.
As an adult, that sort of numbs you to those things. So I see things differently now, and I know it's because of my background, but just crazy stuff, man. Like just going to the gas station with my cousins, it wasn't a shock to see like a dead body at the gas station. You know what I mean? So yeah. So like then you leave, and it was like a shock to me because I would move other places. I've lived in Pittsburgh and I lived all over the country. I'm in Houston, Texas right now. So like, once you leave and you're like, oh, everybody doesn't live like this. Like,
right. It's a different world.
It's a whole different world, but yeah, man, I grew up rough. I remember, we wouldn't be allowed to sit on the couches in my living room, because the drug dealers on the corner would come and shoot up our house because my dad and my uncles would fight them off the corner. So they just didn't deal on our corner. You know what I mean? So that's the background that I came from. It's very, very easy, to become a statistic, very, very easy, to become just another number when you're born into an environment like that. But luckily for me, I had people around me that gave a damn. I had people around me that wanted me to be special and saw the potential that I had. So my dad sat me down one day because I was messing up and I was headed down that path. And he sat me down and said, hey, you've got two choices. Either this is going to be the life that you're going to lead, and I'm going to show you how to do it, but there's no, like, this is it. Like, this is just who you're going to be. You know, it's going to be paranoia. It's going to be violence. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. It's going to be jail or death. He's like, or you can be a better man than me and do what I couldn't do, you know? So that's the route that I chose. Was first member of my family to go to college, graduate college. And then, you know, sports all through school, all through college. And then eventually once I left there, you know, I had two choices again, either get a real job or, you know, try pro wrestling, which is something that I've always loved. Grew up watching it. We would all get together and order pay-per-views at different houses, and we would all just gather there as a family and watch, you know, Taker and Vader and Hogan and Flair and just all the names. And I remember when my dad took me to the Richfield Coliseum, which is my very first live show. It was Kerry Von Erich against the Warlord, went to a double countout, and I just remember the building going absolutely bonkers. And people are throwing stuff, they're throwing popcorn, they're throwing drinks, they're throwing everything. And I'm just sitting back as a kid going, whatever they do that makes people they don't know react this way, I want to do. So, I mean, yeah. So, like, with that inspiration, after college, I ended up reconnecting with a buddy of mine, Raymond Rowe, who you guys know is one half of War Raiders, former IWGP Tag Team Champions, former ROH Tag Champions, and another guy by the name of Jerry Myers, a.k.a. J-Rock, who also helped train EC3 and John McChesney and a whole bunch of other people. So once I got with them, you know, the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, I mean, that's growing up, like you said, you know, so there's two paths, and obviously, you know, you made the right decision. So how does going from, you know, going to the Coliseum and seeing the Warlord and the Texas Tornado, how do you get from there to, I guess, going to a wrestling school? Is that a decision you made? Like, once you were there, you're like, this is it. This is what's for me. This is how I'm, you know, or were there other things you did along the way and you always kind of came back to wrestling?
Yeah, it was more of the latter, because as a kid, like, the only way that I knew was go to Vince. You know what I mean? So I didn't know how to do that as a kid. So, you know, I amateur wrestled in school, played football, you know, and did that all the way through school. And then it wasn't until I think like 2006, 2007, you know, I didn't even know about the indies. You know what I mean? Like, there was a company in Pittsburgh where I was living at the time called the International Wrestling Cartel. And I remember seeing Ray and J-Rock on a poster and remembering Ray Rowe from high school. And I was like, oh, well, let's see what this is, you know? So I went into that and I was hooked. Ever since that, I was like, oh, there's other routes to go other than this one, than the main one. So once I figured that out, that's when I really started to get, you know, refine that passion for it and start looking for my way to get in.
And now, being an athlete through college and in high school, that, you know, the amateur wrestling, like you said, did that make the transition to the training professional wrestling easier, or do you believe the training for professional wrestling is more, you know, as mental as it is physical?
A little bit of both. Anything you do physically or anything you do that's taxing in any sort of way is mostly mental. The physical pain and the exhaustion and all that stuff is going to come and go the more you get used to it. But I do think there are a few sports that carry over to wrestling very well as far as, you know, the mindset you need and the conditioning. You know, amateur wrestling is one of them. It's very similar as far as the groundwork and chain wrestling and moving and always trying to stay one step up ahead. And then boxing as well, which I've done since I was like 5. just the ability to continue to move and continue to be at your best even when you're tired. You know, all those skills come into play when you cross over from those two sports, which is why you see so many guys now with wrestling backgrounds or fighting backgrounds, because it's a easier learning curve when you step between the ropes.
Where did you spend most of where did you start training for pro wrestling?
In Cleveland with Ray Rowe and J Rock.
Okay, and your first match, that was in Cleveland as well?
My very first match was, I think, in Paynesville, Ohio, for a company called New Era Pro Wrestling, and I was actually wrestling J Rock. So once they got me under their wing, they sort of just sheltered me from the rest of the BS, you know what I mean? So, and made sure they took care of me, so it was all good.
It's always good to have somebody, you know, looking out for you, especially, you know, in this business. Now, preparing for your first match, I know professional wrestling is so much more than, you know, it's not a one-person thing. I mean, you're in there with somebody else. And we had just spoken to Kimberly last week, and I asked her, I said, are you ever really ready for your first professional wrestling match? So I would be interested to hear what you say about that.
No. I mean, but there's a lot of things but that's just like life in general. There's a lot of things you're not ready for until they just happen to you, and then you have to adapt. Like for a long time, like before I had my daughter, I was like, I'm not ready for a kid. I'm not ready. But then she came, and I was like, well, it's time to get ready. Like, you know,
gotta lace them up, right? We have no choice now.
Exactly. Like you're forced into the situation, so you got to be ready. You know. Or at least give it your best shot. But you never know until you're out there. So there's always going to be nerves. There's always going to be anxiousness. I mean, hell, before every match that I have now, like the butterflies are there. Those never go away. If they do, then you're done, because that means that the anxiousness and the passion, all that is gone. Because as well as I want to do, I'm excited to be able to go perform, so those butterflies should always be there.
Absolutely, and I think that shows in your matches because, you know, and speaking freely here, I think in 2018 you are absolutely having the best matches of your career. Now, where I think everybody knows when you came into Ring of Honor, you were one half of what I call the greatest named tag team of all time, and that is the Pretty Boy Killers with Keith Lee. I got to know, we had Keith Lee on the show as well. Who came up with that name?
That name originally is credited to a buddy of mine from Ohio named Trip Lee. He was the Pretty Boy Killer, Trip Lee, and he's just a rugged dude. And I love that name so much. And I was like, damn, why didn't I think of that? But then, like, later on down the line, you know, he had taken a break, or, you know, he wasn't wrestling as much. So when I came up with the concept with Keith, we were really just talking about being two guys who look the way we do, who are often overlooked because of that, or sold short because we don't fit the prototype, you know, of what people think professional wrestlers should look like. We were sick of that, you know, and we wanted to show not only could we go out there and outperform them, but just because, but we were going to rub it in the nose of everybody else, you know, who thought that we couldn't. So the name itself is sort of just a sort of, you know, big middle finger to that train of thought. So, I mean, that's why I chose to go with that.
That's a great name, and to this day, it's my favorite tag team name of all time. When did you meet Keith, and when did you guys start teaming together officially?
Shortly after I got to Texas. I got to Texas maybe like end of 2013. So I want to say probably by like that fall of 2014, I ran into Keith at a independent in like the Houston/Cypress area. And we didn't start teaming for a little bit after that. But we originally started teaming because, again, we both were singles wrestlers who knew that nobody else looked like us or could do the things that we could do, but also because they were looking for a tag team to send over to Pro Wrestling Noah at the time to challenge for the NWA World titles. But we didn't get to do that, but we figured out that the chemistry we had as a team was something pretty special. And I think the first time we teamed up, it was against Ray Monroe and a buddy of mine by the name of Jax Dane. So when we had that match, we understood we had something special.
Kind of catching, lightning in a bottle. Now, you guys, when you get to Ring of Honor, they throw you in a program with War Machine and then with the Briscoe brothers. I mean, how does that feel? Because they obviously have the utmost confidence in you guys to put you in matches like that. What was that, getting that call kind of, what does that feel like?
It's a whirlwind of emotion. You're excited, you're anxious, you're nervous, you're afraid because you are in there with those guys, and not afraid of them like physically, but you're nervous and afraid because a lot is being put on your shoulders. So the expectation is high, and to step on one of the biggest stages in the world and sort of say, hey, it's bottom of the ninth right away. You know what I mean? Like that's you go, oh, all right, here we go. But, me and Keith talked about that, and this is what we asked for, and it's something that I say constantly. I perform best when my back is against the wall. I perform best when it's clutch. The bigger the moment, the bigger I shine. So I like being put in those spots. Because I know that it's going to bring the best out of me, that in turn can bring out the best in my opponent. And when you're in there with guys like Ray and Hanson and the Briscoes, you can't ask for better competition. You can't ask for better leaders. You can't ask for better performers. So they made our job incredibly easy, and we just went out there and just beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, and, to anybody listening, if you have the ROH Honor Club, go back and watch those matches. They were like literal car crashes, and they made for great, great television. A lot of people were surprised, when Keith Lee decided to leave Ring of Honor for Evolve. And a lot of people thought that, the Pretty Boy Killers had a long run as a tag team. What was that difficult for you because of such a momentum that you guys had, and then you were like not necessarily starting over, but you were like, all right, got to lace them up and change the course, so to speak. Yeah,
I mean, it's exactly that. I talked to Keith, and there was, and the one thing that we both decided was, when we formed the team, our job was to both, our goal was to both get jobs. Right, was to sign contracts. And when Ring of Honor gave me my first deal, and he was offered the other one, we talked about it, and I said, look, man, you do what you have to do. You do what is best for you and your family and the goals that you have. He has his reasons for why he did that, and a lot of them are valid reasons. So there was no sort of animosity or anything like that. He felt like his opportunities were better elsewhere. And I mean, if you look at the close to year and a half, 2 years he's had since then, you can't really blame the guy. You know what I mean? He's been everywhere. He's traveled the world. He's won world championships all over the place. So I mean, he did what he had to do, and my job is to be a star with or without Keith Lee.
Right, and I think I know you've went through a dramatic physical transformation. You lost something like 75, 80 pounds. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now,
started off about 385 earlier in 2017. Now I'm down to about 305. The goal is another probably 40 or so probably like another 65. And then just really trying to put myself in a position where I can present not only main event quality work in ring, but give Ring of Honor or any place that I work in the future a main event package to present to their audience.
And I definitely think you have done that. I mean, losing that much weight, what do you think was a main key for you? Was it nutrition? Was it certain changes in the exercise, or was it just overall maybe a mindset?
A combination of everything. I never really ate bad. It was just like portion control, and then just making sure that I was eating the proper things and cutting out certain things, and then just getting with people who knew more about it than me, and really sort of just fine-tuning things, and that's really what led to it. Yeah, man, it's been, the changes were noticeable from the get-go. It's faster. I'm stronger now than I was, more explosive. Always had good cardio, but the cardio is still good. And so it's been awesome.
And if anybody wants an example of that, go look last weekend, Bound by Honor, Night 2, you versus Jay Lethal. That match absolutely tore the house down. I thought that was a fantastic match. Jay Lethal is, in my mind, one of the top 5 best wrestlers in the world right now, and I feel like you got a great chance to shine with him in a really, really good match. With a fantastic angle with Lonnie Poffo. That was just amazing television. What was, I feel like Ring of Honor, you have a lot more singles opportunity in matches. You're on TV so much more. What was that like having that match last weekend with Lethal?
I mean, well, Jay is one of the guys that I had on my bucket list of wrestlers. It was a situation that got changed around, and I was put into that spot. But again, like I like those challenges, and I like being put in those spots. I tell people all the time, I can't hit home runs for you if you don't let me swing. So they told me to step up to the plate, and I swung as hard as I could. You know what I mean? So the reaction for the match has been great. A lot of positive feedback. And when you're in there again and you hit the nail on the head, Jay Lethal is, I don't know if I can think of 4 people better than him in the world. I mean, I really can't. I think he gets slept on a lot as being that sort of pound for pound best wrestler in that argument. But when you're in there with a guy like him, you have no choice but to step your game up, but to be ready to go. And I was very, very proud of that match and that performance, as well as being able to interact with Lanny Poffo as well.
And I think if people missed night 1, I mean, you were in there against I don't want to say a rookie, but a relative newcomer in Josh Woods, and those guys are 2 literally completely different styles. So for you to be able to have such great matches with 2 different guys in back-to-back nights, I mean, I think it's time Ring of Honor starts taking a little more notice.
You're not the only one. But no, man, it's everything is earned there. Plugging away, trying to do my best. I'm hoping with the performances that you guys will see on TV coming up soon here from Pittsburgh and Columbus, and with the match against Woods and the match against Jay Lethal and the stuff that I continue to do, that people realize that I'm the real deal, and there's a lot of people, and I tell people all the time that the secret's getting out. You know what I mean? Like, people are starting to notice that, anytime I go out there, I'm putting on a show, and I'm consistent. There's not different levels of performance you get with me. I'm all in every single time. Throttle all the way down.
I mean, that also includes getting in the face of Bellator vet King Mo. I know there was a little bit of jaw-jacking back and forth. What are we going to see between King Mo and Shane Taylor in the future? Is there something to that?
Listen, you're going to see him get his ass busted if he keeps talking trash like that. That's what's going to happen. Like, listen, I mean, I this is my thing. I understand, the entertainment aspect of what we both do. But I, for one, like, I'm sick of, like, and this is no disrespect to the sport, but, like, MMA guys coming over to pro wrestling and then thinking like they're tougher than us, and they're not. Like, you just have a different training, you have a different skill set than we have, but that doesn't mean that you're just going to walk in here and whoop anybody's ass. Sorry for cussing, but like, it upsets me that people just think like, because you're a pro wrestler, oh, I'm just going to beat you up. No, homie, like, this is not how this goes. I've been fighting my entire life. I've been boxing my entire life. You've got guys with legitimate backgrounds who love professional wrestling, so this is what we chose to do. So the whole concept itself is dumbfounding to me, where it seems like professional wrestling always has to take a back seat to a quote-unquote more legitimate sport, and I hate it because people come here for a reason. People go there and they do what they do, whether they're successful or not, but they come here. Guys like them are trying to be us there. You know what I mean? Chael Sonnen, Connor, the whole list of them trying to create professional wrestling personalities in their sport. It's not a coincidence. So when they come over here and try to run their mouth, it pisses me off a bit. And King Mo is no exception. Like I told him on Twitter, on Instagram, like I told him it in his face, I was like, homie, we can do this at Ring of Honor, or I know they have open weight classes at Bellator. I'll go to Bellator. I don't care. But, you know, if he keeps crossing me, we're going to have to do something about this.
Listen, I completely agree with you. Growing up a fan of both, the fighters that make the most money are the ones that have taken every aspect of professional wrestling. Chael Sonnen was everywhere, and he quoted, quote for quote, a Superstar Billy Graham promo. So these guys are reading from the pages of books that were written, you know, years and years ago. And, you know, professional wrestlers now are not the guys that they were in the late 70s and early 80s. You know, it's athletes, you know, in a sport. So I think, listen, I'm nominating Shane Taylor for the front line to stand toe-to-toe with these guys. I like the message. I like what you're saying here.
Listen, I'm down. Be it King Mo, be it Riddle, be it whoever. Like, I get it. And again, this is no disrespect to the sport, but if you're going to copy what we do, if you're going to come into our world, don't disrespect what we do. And this is the fans, the announcers, and the commentators too in their sport. They always tend to talk down about pro wrestling, yet do everything in their power to emulate it. And it pisses me off. You know, don't copy us and then talk trash. Don't come into our world and then run your mouth. Because if we were to do that to you, you would take it as disrespect. So I'm taking it as disrespect.
Well, I hope King Mo's listening. You know, if he's not,
I hope he is.
He's going to find out some way. This is it's got me riled up. I want to see more of it. Listen, Shane, where can people find you online? Because you're on Twitter and you got some real interesting tweets. Like you said, you're talking to King Mo. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you?
At Twitter and Instagram at Shane216Taylor, Facebook, Notorious Shane Taylor. Also, the pro wrestling tees. If any of you guys listening are so inclined to buy some merchandise, prowrestlingtees.com/Shane Taylor. Also, ROHwrestling.com. Go to the merch shop. Pick up your Shane Taylor Knockouts for Everybody t-shirt. It'd be greatly appreciated.
And, you know, the pro wrestling tees, there's a Shane Taylor One Punch Cleveland Street Fighter shirt that I am now inclined to pick up because I am on the front lines with Shane Taylor against King Mo and against the MMA. Let's do this.
Listen, I'm down, man. Yeah, I'm down.
That's awesome. Shane, listen, we cannot thank you enough. It was awesome talking to you. We appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to seeing what you got coming up with Ring of Honor on the Honor Club. Everybody make sure to check it out, and on Fight TV. Shane Taylor, thank you for stopping by the show, my friend. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man.